Hello friends, welcome to ELS English Literature Studies with Gaur Harpit. Today we'll discuss Robert Browning and his optimism. So let's get started with today's lecture. Robert Browning, a poet of the Victorian age, has many of his poems filled with optimism. When Browning started writing, the thinking of people was scientific and materialistic. And people have lost their faith in religion, they have lost their faith in morality and spirituality, right? But talking about Robert Browning, he was optimistic about the existence of God and heaven. His poetry, we can say, it is a reflection of his deviation from the scientific temperament that was prevailing at that time. There are a lot of confusions and conflicts in this age. There are the conflicts between art and life, art and morality, then conflicts between content and form, men and women, classic education and progressive education, right there, and there are so many things. But Robert Browning is an optimist, and because of his this temperament, he holds a very distinct place among all the writers of the Victorian age, right? It is Browning. He preaches universality as the central truth of philosophy of life. His optimism that is based on life's realities. He says that life is full of imperfection, but in this very imperfections lies hope, and this is the spirit of the philosophy of life according to Browning, right? He does not at all challenge the old dogmas. Rather, he accepts the conventional view of God, the immortality of the soul, and the Christian belief in incarnation, right? Friends, during the first 30 years of Browning's career, from the publication of Pauline to the publication of Dramatis Personae in 1864, he received tributes from a few, but he was neglected and ridiculed by many. But fame came to him in an extraordinary measure during the last part of his life, right? Hugh Walker, he describes Tennyson and Browning as two kings of poetry of that age. If we talk about Tennyson, he was at heart a pessimist, but Browning, he was at heart a strong optimist, right? Even at the marriage of his time of his marriage, Browning was, it is commonly said that a great literary artist had eloped with the great poetess Elizabeth Browning, right? And today we can say that he has more admirers than any other Victorian poet. During his lifetime, his admirers founded a Browning Society also. Being an optimist, neglect and ridicule did not make him either angry or frustrated. He remains unaffected, and his optimism is clear even in his style of writing a poem, that he always picks up his central character in crisis, or central character who is in some critical situation. Then his crisis reaches the climax and ultimately it is resolved, and he ends his poem with optimism, right? His energy, his cheerful courage, his faith in life, his faith in development that awaits us beyond the portals of death. All these things make him an incorrigible optimist. Incorrigible means which cannot be corrected. All these things make him an optimist who gave a call to good living and fighting against all these evil things, right? Browning was an intellectual democrat. As a poet, he is a realist. His aim, like that of a modern poet, is to see and represent human life and character as it is, right? It is in this world, everyone has his own point of view and everyone has the right to state his case, right? Browning, we can say, is this like a psychoanalyst allowing man to explain his conduct and defend himself. He employs the technique of dramatic monologue. It may be noted that Browning is not completely subjective, right? He is a noble army of strivers who strive but fail, right? Baffled artists and rejected lovers all find a place in his poems. His message is the triumph of will over all obstacles. He is a poet par excellence of the glory of failure and frustrations and we can say this is all the more surprising since his own life and love was successful, right? Friends, although he was prosaic, when he was philosophizing, he had the greatest gift of speaking from the heart, which some great poets, we can say, they have lacked this particular feature, right? And he exhibits the love of man and life in all its manifestations, from the baseness to the noblest heights of self-renunciation. His special field was the soul, which of course is never exactly alike in any two men, right? So Browning sought to express the hidden factors and motives which governs individual action. Browning's joy in soul flowed over numerous lifeless things. His usual imagery is fetched, we can say, not only from flowers or clouds or rivers, but it is also from, we can say, wine cups, then swords, then we can say lamps, houses, shops, everything, right? And Browning looks at the failure in this world in a very unconventional way. And we can quote here example from the Last Try Together, where the speaker in the Last Try Together holds that some of his desires must be left unfilled on this earth so that he can be accomplished in the next life, right? It is the hope that of this future happiness which helps him to face death readily, right? And Browning, he uses the word soul, not body. He really wanted to say that God had indeed created man to live, man to love. We call him an optimist because of his firm faith in God, because his firm faith in him and his poems. We can see that his poems are full of courage and inspiration. And according to his philosophy, we can say that love is the principal feature which unifies and humanizes all, right? It is by love that man touches the infinite. Robert Browning says that death and these mortal terrors ought to be taken in a military spirit. He talks about cosmos as an adventure rather than to be taken in a we can say rather than be taken as a scheme in his poetry, right? And his hope lies in the imperfection of man. According to him, nobody is perfect, and this imperfection which exists for the excellent reason that we might strive for perfection. Evil exists so that we may realize what is right and what is wrong, right? We may realize virtue. Life is a persistent struggle, according to him, towards an ideal one. We must continue to make efforts as better things are reserved in heaven. This is his philosophy of life, right? This is his way, how he looks at life. And he believed in the cycle of birth and rebirth and in the transmigration of soul, right? He says that he says somewhere that in his poem that age past the soul existed, right? And Browning's optimism, it stresses on the constant struggle of human life. According to Browning, we can say life's value lies not in achievement but in aspiration, right? In the spiritual condition that distinguishes a man from other, we can say from we can say an animal, right? And it is the struggle which can lead to achievement, which can lead to spiritual development. Browning speaks out the strongest words of optimistic faith in this Victorian age of pessimism, right? And friends, this is all about my today's topic, and if you like my content, please hit the like button, share and subscribe my channel. Thanks a lot for watching.